Where do you want to go? We are fired up. We're gonna. So now I don't know how to pause this. We're gonna get kicked off YouTube. Welcome in, everybody. I am Chris Marler. With me today is a special guest co-host. You should know him by now. It's your uncle Chris Gordy. I feel like you're like the uncle that lives upstairs at this point, like in a good way, like Uncle Joey and Uncle. I just realized Uncle Joey and Uncle Jesse were living together up in that attic.
Yeah, there were conspiracies about that until Aunt Becky came along.
Aunt Becky was hot and would get you
She's
into
still
college.
hot, and
Yeah,
she's
she is very
super in prison.
He's in prison for that?
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't bribe schools and fake test scores.
Who would have thought? She didn't play football. It makes sense. All right. I am your co-host slash host, Chris Marler. Well, let's just get the cat out of the bag. We're recording on a Tuesday, and that's because on Monday night, I slept through my alarm, which should not have been set because it was a night. I stayed up all night Sunday working on this graphic about Kirby Smart draft picks all night, and literally fell asleep at my computer sitting up like Monday afternoon, like 3:30. I was like, I need to go take a nap.
Are you
And
like new to Photoshop? Like, how long does it take you? Like 9 hours to do a graphic?
dude, okay, so this isn't funny, but like it's my biggest problem in this job is that like I know I'm very good at making graphics. I get like locked into this like I always say it's like I'm paralyzed with indecision. It takes me out. Yesterday I spent 3 hours on where to put the number of draft picks in Kirby's photo. It like my whole thing for this year, and I'm being very serious when I say this. I'm not even making a joke. My entire thing for this year was I'm not gonna sit here and like waste much time on how to make graphics. Like I'm just gonna make the content and put it up and not overthink it. Every single fucking time, man. I just overthink the whole thing. It takes me.
Don't
It's awful.
overthink it. Just don't waste your time. Do it. I mean,
Yeah.
you do a good job. I would spend, in fact, with most of the graphics you do, I would say spend more time on the research and the writing, like what you do. Like when you do the matchups, I love when you do like the breakdowns of this school versus the school, favorite, famous alumni and all that. That's all great stuff. Don't stress over the graphic though.
I appreciate it. It was talking to somebody last night, and I was like flat out, my biggest thing with this job is like I mean, like I'm not like the best at typos and stuff, right? Like I'll have typos and shit like that. But I like really pride myself on doing this research, and I really enjoy it more than anything. It's like my favorite thing to do. But man, I just like yesterday I could feel myself doing it. I kept yelling. I just kept yelling at myself. I was like, this sucks. Anyway, that's enough about me for therapy today and my indecision. Welcome. Yeah, we have a great audience already. This sounds good. We're going to be talking about the NFL draft. I don't think we're going to talk 2019 LSU, 2020 Bama. I don't think we could. It's like the perfect setup for it.
You notice the shirt I'm wearing today?
You're such a dick.
I'm not even a Georgia fan, but respect.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, I mean, we can get right into it if we want. NFL draft was this weekend, and there's a lot of takeaways to have from the NFL draft. But one of the takeaways that I have is now that Kirby Smart over the last 2 years and really his first 7 as a head coach, you could argue that he is up there with the all-time greats in college football history already after 7 years at producing NFL talent.
It's been a paradigm shift. Georgia is now Bama from 2012, 2013. It is there when the depth of their roster, the draft picks, the lack of losses, Kirby and Georgia are rolling. Now, Bama's not dead. The dynasty's not dead, but they are what Bama was about a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, and I love that you brought up 2013 because if those of you who don't remember, 2013 ended in horrible fashion for Alabama, and I pray that happens to Georgia. I
love it, 2012, I'll say then.
Yeah, no, I think that there's so many weird fun moments from the weekend, and I mean, I had the best weekend. I went to Taylor Swift too, which we got to talk about. It was awesome. You have no comments on that. That's
My
it. That's
wife,
the thing.
my wife went, and she had tickets, and she was like, "Do you want to go?" I was like, "No, that's for the girls." But glad you had fun.
I had an ex tell me, and this is one of the funniest things I've ever had anyone say. A toxic ex texted me and said, um, I didn't know you were going to Taylor Swift. I was like, I told you I was going to Taylor Swift. And said, give me that ticket or I will never speak to you again. And we went to like just a blessing from God. I was just like, I
Wow.
didn't give her the ticket. I did block her, so she will never speak to me again. I had the best time, man. It was awesome. Also, you know what? I'll just say it. The pettiest thing I've ever done. I made a video during We Are Never Getting Back Together,
Oh
filmed it,
wow.
sent it, and then reblocked her.
Jeez. No,
Pettiest.
I would think you as a single guy at the Taylor Swift concert. I mean, you should have been.
I was one of 12 for sure. It was like, all right, so let me just take you guys to the Taylor Swift concert first, because it's way more important. It was all girls, right? And so I get there, I'm like, of course I'm running late. So like as I'm walking in, I thought the show started like 8. So it's like, oh yeah, you got a few people going on first, like first and second act, then Taylor will go on after that, and like it'll be fine. I go at like 7:05, I'm like, or 7:35, and I'm walking in, and the concert already started. And I'm like, okay, so seats are very last row, upper deck, which is like whatever. I was just happy to go.
Yeah.
When I tell you, I got when I got to the seats and with like just catching my breath and sweating profusely, like around just droves of all women. There's like
And not women in like normal clothes. Every girl dressed up, right?
every single girl dressed up. I wore an Air Raid shirt that I made from like Breaking Tea.
You should have made a T-shirt that said like "I know all too well." They would have loved that.
I wanted to. So I've done this before. I've actually seen Taylor Swift before. Me and my friend Ted, I made shirts for us that were like, this is like when I was in much better shape. Gold sequin, not sequins, gold like shiny gold letters, and mine said Nightmare and his said Daydream. We were a big hit. This one I was not, and I've never seen so many sequins in my fucking life.
Oh yeah, pink everywhere, sequins.
Yeah,
sunglasses in the heart shape. I mean, just everything.
Yeah. It was an awesome concert though. She did really, really well.
Anyways, she did well, the biggest superstar in the world. She did okay.
I gave it a B+. No, she like it was crazy because it was like there's so many fucking songs that like I didn't recognize, but she went on for 3.5 hours, which I thought was too much. And but never took a break, and then was like, she did say one thing. I remember, and I made fun of this afterwards with like the group we were hanging out with, and I was like, I will say, as a 36-year-old male, I don't think she was very relatable to me. And at like one point, she like made this joke about how she was like, yeah, like I remember writing this song. It was when I was like 21, 22, 23, like the toughest years, like some of the toughest years in your life. And I was like counting them off, I'm like 21, 22. I was in college for all 3 of those and more, and it was fucking awesome. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so it was super weird. Am I breaking up right now?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
It's not the best.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, but it was great.
That internet, that's what's going on.
Yeah, the internet. I made a comment about it afterwards. I was like, I feel like 21, 22, or 3 were like the easiest years of my life. I was in school and everything was great. And like every girl that we were with immediately was like, those were very hard years for me. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, she was going through heartbreak with all these, did you not listen to the lyrics of the 10-minute version of All Too Well? Jake Gyllenhaal was breaking her heart, dude.
He was awful. She got cheated on a whole bunch of times. It's just terrible. I mean, T-Swift's been through it all. Yeah. All right, I've talked about T-Swift long enough to avoid the inevitable. Well, first of all, how are you doing? What's going on with you?
I'm good, man. I just got back from Vegas, lost a lot of money, made some bets. I sent you the text. Future Heisman bet. I cannot believe that. And if the odds are at your sports book still, go jump on it right now. Carson Beck Heisman odds plus 3,000. I cannot believe it. Georgia is going to go undefeated. Georgia, I mean, and keep in mind the Heisman's a regular season award. Like Carson Beck has as good a chance of anybody. They're not going to. Caleb Williams isn't going to repeat. Like if he does the same thing he did a year ago, they're not going to give it to him again. They don't like doing that. So
And they love the Heisman loves a white quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, and on an undefeated team like
Yeah,
Georgia's running back by committee. None of those dudes are going to get it. There's no one receiver that's going to get it. Defensive guys, it's like impossible to win it. So like
yeah,
Carson Beck, if any, I know this Carson Beck is going to be in New York. I don't know if
yeah.
he'll win it, but he'll be in New York. So to me, like, dude, go jump on those odds. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get the money out of my wallet fast enough.
Well, they came down from like plus 4,000 or something like that, which is weird. But I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I thought it was really interesting. I was telling the pod, thought it was super interesting. That was like plus 4,000 for Carson, plus 1,800 for Brock Vandegrift. But everything coming out of Athens of spring practice is that kid is. I just read something on Twitter. I was waiting on you to join, and it was like Brad Crawford, who covers South Carolina, and he even mentioned he's like everything I've heard is like they are dicing up that defense at like 10 yards a pop, like
They did in the spring game.
yeah,
Or,
like
or
buy
Beck did.
stocks you can.
That's what was crazy was the other quarterbacks all threw picks. Beck didn't.
Right.
Beck was the one poised and throwing all the passes downfield. So again, like I was, and I'm trying to like look for other angles. I'm like, hey, how about Jaden Daniels? Like if he has a really good year at LSU, but like he was like, whatever, like 11-1. I'm like, those aren't good odds. Like
No, not at all.
Carson Beck, 3,000-1. Go jump on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Other news from around the SEC, around the country. Oregon had their spring game this weekend. Seemed to go pretty well. Brian Harsin showed up. And that was some of my favorite stuff on Instagram for sure. Him like Brian Harsin taking photos with Bo Nix this weekend and still making Auburn fans mad was really funny.
There was a graphic that just came out. Somebody listed their top quarterbacks for next year's draft, and Bo Nix is like top 5.
Yeah.
Not top 5 in the draft, but like top 5 among quarterbacks.
Right.
It's Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then there's like a big drop off. But like people really think I'm like, what is Bo Nix going to do this year to become a high quarterback prospect in the NFL?
He had 44 touchdowns in like last year. And then you also think about the fact that I think in that offense, he's a lot better than people want to give him credit for because we saw it so many times at Auburn. And here's the thing too. I love joking about how bad Bo Nix was when you talk about like at Auburn, especially and how he, blew these games. There's he was injured in the second half against Mississippi State. In that game, they had like a historic comeback where they were up 28-3, which is a horrible score. Auburn refused to put that kid into good situations. Just refused to do it. And now he's at Oregon. I think he's like away from all that kind of like toxicity and that terrible, shit around the people that he grew up with and all that kind of stuff. And the whole thing from a fan perspective is going to be, well, he sucked in the SEC. Well, he also was like, in his first years of being a starter in the SEC. Then he transferred and went to the, and like grew up a little bit and got like some confidence, had some people around him. And maybe it turned it around. I mean, also the Pac-12 defenses are terrible. That's fair. But I don't know. That kid, it'll be interesting to see what he does this year. But he's also a guy like Will Levis in some ways that's like he's gonna impress some people for all these, what's the word I'm looking for?
Intangibles.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all of his intangibles. Like he has a good arm. He can move really, really well. He's a good athlete.
Looks good in an undershirt.
Bingo. And like I think his acne probably cleared up by now. So like he's gonna go. I'm not even saying that as a joke. I think he's gonna go into the combine and he's gonna impress some people.
What happened with this NIL deal with Bojangles? Did that carry over to the West Coast?
I don't think there's a Bojangles. Actually, I know there's not a Bojangles in Oregon. I don't know because he was like the first one that came out with the NIL thing, right? It was like, all right, now colleges, you cannot be talking to these companies at all until after July 1st. And it was like July 1st at 12:01 a.m. Like
I don't think he even had. I don't think he even got money. I think he just got like a lifetime supply of Milo's iced tea.
That's enough to some people. I mean, apparently it's really good.
But speaking of Auburn quarterbacks, the big story this week is, we know TJ Finley just went into the portal. We knew that already because he was on my podcast 2 weeks ago, and I broke that tip. But they are Auburn is hosting a couple quarterbacks, and Casey Thompson, the former Texas and Nebraska quarterback, they just had in over the weekend, and then the Michigan State kid, Peyton Thorne, and it sounds like it's down to a 2-horse race that Auburn's going to get one of these guys, and that's going to be their starter this year.
I mean, I'm not going to rule out Robbie Ashford. He sucks. I've said it 1,000 times. He's not good. But in that offense for Hugh Freeze, he could be. Also, one thing people fail to kind of remember though, and I may have just done that, is that in like Hugh Freeze's offense is not Gus Malzahn's offense. That people kind of just assume it's the same thing. A
No.
lot more passing involved in Hugh Freeze's offense, and I mean, let's not forget. I mean, Hugh Freeze turned Bo Wallace into a 2-time 3,000-yard passer.
Yeah,
That's
he's great.
insane. Yeah. All right. Well, it's blowing up in the chat because we've managed to only bring Georgia fans in here for some reason. But
I like Ben said is TJ Finley going to Bama? Is TJ Finley right now better than Tyler Buckner? Because that might be an upgrade for you.
they'll talk all the shit you want about all the quarter. Just like talk all the shit you want. Because I still remember watching you guys play with fucking Mettenberger crawling off the field after 4 straight sacks against Alabama. And
Dude,
in Georgia, here's the thing. I said this last week. So all I'm saying about the Georgia fans is talk all the shit you want, but just realize in the same breath that you're doing it, that Stetson Bennett was a walk-on quarterback. So if Tyler Buckner, and I know how Georgia fans all from the jump loved Stetson Bennett, and we're all super supportive of Stetson Bennett for all the years he was there. So don't sit here like there are a lot of fan bases that can talk shit about quarterbacks. That's not one of them. That's not one of them.
Who was the dude that like played that first game for Georgia and then like ended up at like Wake Forest or something?
Oh, Dwan Mathis. He was a top 100 recruit.
Mathis, yeah. What happened to him?
I don't know. He was dating Chuck Smith's daughter. I remember that because he was like, that was like a whole thing when I was on the show with him. And then, but then he went to Temple. I think he was from Philly.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so there was a quote, and somebody just brought this up, that Bama, somebody related to JD Picknell, who's a blonde. Yeah. He's like if what's the guy's name from Rocky IV? He's like if Ivan Drago like drank milk and grew up in like Nebraska. That's JD Picknell. He's like a good looking blonde dude that's all ripped. So he said that he's like, what I've been told is that Tyler Buckner, what Bama's trying to do is find their Stetson Bennett. And I've never hated a sentence more in my entire life.
I love that quote. That's so like, what a fall from grace. You just had Tua, Mac Jones, and Bryce Young. And now you're just trying to find your walk-on game manager. That's what Bama's looking for.
Back to basics.
Lord.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be something that is they're going to settle it anytime soon, obviously, because we're going into the offseason. But yeah, that sentence was pretty shitty. Speaking of Stetson Bennett, let's get back to the draft. NFL draft day 2 and 3 happened on Friday and Saturday. Will Levis finally got drafted, so he's not just sitting there in the green room with his girlfriend and mom and whoever his sister. I guess there's a lot of women around.
Hot sisters, by the way.
Yeah, very hot sisters. Levis was drafted. The SEC obviously dominated again, but the Big Ten actually did really well this year, tying them for most first round picks, and also I think only had like 5 less or 7 less total picks in the draft this year, which is a lot better than some of the years past. Looking at the weekend, biggest surprise, biggest moment, Stetson Bennett goes in the 4th round, which I like it. That just makes sense. I never understood. Like I enjoyed watching the fodder about it, but it just like the whole Stetson's not going to get drafted. I remember saying on this podcast, I was like, he's not doing anything to help himself. But like, I in the Vegas odds were like minus like 190 or 150 that he was not going to get drafted at all.
Yeah, no, I fully expected he was going to get drafted. The incident in Dallas, it wasn't the best, but
right,
he was drunk and knocking on a door. He wasn't doing anything super crazy.
Yeah.
But by the way, SEC quarterbacks, the most selected in the NFL draft, the most from the conference since 1971. So,
right.
There was this big narrative a couple of years back that the SEC, all they do is run the ball and stop the run, and they have mediocre quarterback play. It has gone to elite levels here in recent years. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. Well, maybe at Bama, but at other schools, we're going to have elite quarterback play. No, I thought that's a perfect place for him. I mean, it's a Georgia. It was funny because around the same time, the Saints drafted Jake Hayner, who's a Fresno
Mhm.
State quarterback, who gets to go be mentored by Fresno State quarterback Derek Carr with the Saints. And then Stetson gets to go be mentored by the Georgia quarterback Matthew Stafford. So I think it's kind of cool from that standpoint.
No, I think that part is pretty cool. I think he's obviously played that stadium before. We all know that, and ended very well for him. So you brought up the narratives thing. I thought that was super interesting because the narratives part was probably the most interesting part for me because of how quickly some of them have changed. And you brought up especially the part about SEC quarterback play. I mean, like we're not talking about this wasn't like 10, 20 years ago that this was an argument. It was like 3, 4, 5 years ago that the entire stigma was, oh, the SEC doesn't have good quarterback play. The SEC doesn't. Then you look at Joe Burrow comes along. People who still hate on Tua for whatever fucking reason. I don't give a shit if you think he belongs in the SEC or not. The man was a 2-year starter and the SEC Offensive Player of the Year as a true freshman. Jalen Hurts comes from the SEC, even though he finishes his career at Oklahoma. You look at just how quickly that entire situation has changed.
I
Where
think
it's like
2014 is where it started to turn because that was the draft you had Johnny Manziel, Aaron Murray, AJ McCarron, Zach Mettenberger. I know a lot of those guys were like 5th rounder, like middle of the draft, but like that was the first time in the longest I remember like 4 dudes from the SEC all in one draft.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like there was, I'm trying to think of when I feel like there was a couple of years ago when it was like you didn't have any. And I tell you what my favorite moment is. I tell you what my favorite moment from all this is. SEC Chuck Dunlap, the gatekeeper of all things SEC. Or he put out a tweet or an Instagram post today making fun of my coworker Matt Hayes, and was like how it started, how it's going, and it was like SEC quarterback play is so terrible and it's falling apart. It's gonna be the demise of the conference. And then it was like, man, the SEC just showed like what it
well, last year was Corral only, but that was a crappy quarterback class overall. And maybe we could put Malik in there because he started at Auburn. But
we did a spring game.
The year before that, you had Mac Jones, you had Kyle Trask, Kellen Mond, so multiple guys there. The year before was Joe Burrow, Tua, Jake from State Farm, Tommy Stevens, if you want to count him. But yeah, it's just been more SEC guys year by year. And I mean, looking at this right now, I mean, I think KJ Jefferson will have a chance if he has a really good year. Will Rogers, Jaden Daniels, I'm hearing people really like him. So maybe not all going to be first round guys next year, but let's see what kind of years they have.
Yeah, no, the first round thing was that doesn't happen often in general. I will tell you one thing that's a concern for next year. You're talking about like the SEC's had that stat for 17 straight years. Connor and I were talking about this the other day in our class, in our weekly meeting, that like the SEC's had the most draft picks in the first round for 17 straight years. If you look at any mock draft for next year, there's like 2 things that stand out that are very consistent. There's only like 5 or 6 SEC guys, which is, it's not final by any means, but it's incredibly low for their. Usually you're talking about like double digits at least, but around 14, 15 guys around the SEC. Ohio State is the other thing that is very scary to me, and that is every mock I've seen has them with around 7 to 8 first rounders, and that would be crazy if it happened. It's never happened before. Alabama had 7, but like if that happens, I mean, Ohio State is going to be very, very good. Even I think everyone just kind of assumed like with the loss of who's the quarterback? Why can't I think of this? What am I doing right now? CJ Stroud. Yeah, CJ Stroud. They would kind of maybe like, they might fall back a little bit or whatever. Ohio State's going to be really good next year. Really good.
Yeah, I just wonder on the quarterback stuff, though. I mean, I get, all these schools have recruited very well at quarterback and they expect these guys to step up. But, like to me, that's what's I'm hesitating from putting Bama as a lock for the West right now. Just so many people are like, oh, it's Bama.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But it's Bama had Mac Jones, Tua, all these guys waiting in the wings. Right now, we don't know who the quarterback is. And based on the spring game, we don't feel great about it. So, like, I'm a little hesitant there. So, same thing with Ohio State. Like, we can't just say, oh, they lose CJ Stroud, but man, they're going to be dominant and they're going to be right back in it. No, like, let's see what the quarterback spot looks like first. By the way, I think you got your stats mixed up. It was the 8th straight draft. The SEC had the most first round picks, or at
Oh,
least
17
tied
overall.
with 17 straight drafts. So they have the most SEC players drafted overall. Yeah,
My
62,
bad.
I believe.
Yeah. It was 62. That's a good point. I appreciate you correcting me on that. There was one comment in here that I thought was funny from BTB Visor. He said Bama is far removed from Sark and Kiffin, so the QB room has dropped off in the offense to some degree. Now, here's why I love that comment. He's not wrong, but why I love that comment is it could not be better proof to me of how much people hate Alabama and they refuse to give him credit. Because all I heard when Kiffin and Sark were there, all I heard, from Michael Bratton said the same thing. They're only good because of the players. Those offensive coordinators are only good because they had those players. Like Sark didn't have to do anything. So, I mean, it is the goalposts will move constantly. And the only time I wish they would ever move was in that 2013 Iron Bowl. So anyway,
by the way, I was talking with somebody real quick about Quinn Ewers. They were asking me what kind of Heisman odds were on Quinn Ewers, and I was like, I just don't think he would win it. And this guy said, well, what if he wins in Tuscaloosa? I said, well, first off, I don't think it's going to happen. But second off, even if he does, they're just not like what we've seen from Texas under Tom Herman and under Sark so far is like, even if they win that game, they're going to slip up and lose to an Iowa State or a West Virginia, lose some stupid game they have no business losing. And and Quinn Ewers has a bad game. I think his Heisman stock would drop right after that.
The amount of talent that I hear everyone saying about, they always have these classes, they always have the recruiting classes. They have not had the amount of talent, especially at those positions that are important, that they do right now. I feel like I've said it the last year, and I was wrong. Texas is back, and I think they do beat Bama in week 2, to be honest, because it's too early in the season to have developed an identity for Alabama.
But are they going to the playoff?
Who?
Texas. Like if they win that game, no, I think even if they beat Bama, I think they lose 1 or 2 games in the Big 12 and they knock themselves out because that's what Texas does.
Yeah, that's what they did for
TCU at home last year, and they couldn't score a touchdown to win that game. Like if they score any points in that game, they win that game, and they couldn't do it.
And they would have saved everyone from having to see TCU play in a national title game too. All right, so here's the main thing that we want to talk about, and that is the graphic that I made, and it's a pretty interesting deep dive about Kirby Smart in the NFL and his draft picks. Now, there's a lot of arguments to be made from a bunch of different sides. You saw it, right? So this is what I found was interesting. I'm watching the draft, and immediately for the second year in a row, day 3 becomes a 4 to 5 hour long parade of Georgia players being drafted, and they take over the entire draft. It feels like it was a commercial for UGA football the entire time, and deservingly so. It's whatever. But to tell you how much the paradigm, as you put it, has shifted. Do you know that Georgia didn't have the most draft picks, right?
In this year's draft?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was it? Ohio State?
No, it was Bama. They were tied with Bama. But you didn't hear that at all. And think about that compared to what we would hear 2 and 3 years ago. It's like you would hear nothing but the Bama stuff. Georgia has shifted the control and the power of the SEC and national attention so quickly, so fast, because of what Kirby's been able to do. And I remember looking at something about this, going into it, where, all right, they have 15 guys drafted a year ago. And now you have 10 guys go this year, right? So it's 25 draft picks in 2 years. It's the most that's happened in 2 years in college football history, beating their previous record they set the year before with 24. They had 15 and 9. But you look at the sheer amount of picks, you talk about a narrative changing quickly. The narrative only 4 years ago, and maybe even 3 years ago, especially from Florida fans, was Kirby doesn't develop talent. Well, now we're looking at that, and he has 55 total draft picks in the 7 years he's been there. And what's scary about that is that he had 1 in year 1. He only had 1. Wow. So he's had 54 in the past 6.
Y'all tied, by the way. Y'all both had 10 this year, Bama and Georgia.
So I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you were saying Alabama had the most.
No, they did have the most, tied with Georgia.
Oh, well, that's poor wording on your part.
Okay. Well, leaving him out of the whole discussion would be poor wording.
Fake news.
Yeah, this is just more people hate Bama. Okay, so this is what I thought was interesting. Like looking at this, you talk about how many of those players got drafted was 55, and he did it his first 7 years. I saw it immediately, and you knew it would go to it, which was this is how many Nick Saban had, and Nick Saban only had 41. So that alone just like sparked my interest, and I was like, I should stay up all night, do this stupid graphic. But like where he compared, I wanted to see where he compared to not only Saban, but Mark Richt, who was obviously the coach there before, where he compared his first 7. And then over time, like how many, like, because he also has 15 first round draft picks. He had 3 guys go this year, which gives him 10, or I'm sorry, 8 in the last 2 years. He's had 15 first round draft picks in his first 7 years. And I wanted to see like where that ranks in terms of how many. My first thought was I want to see how many first rounders Georgia had. Like, how long did it take them to get 15 first rounders before he got there? And the answer I found out was they didn't have 15 total in the entire Mark Richt era, which was 15 years. So Kirby's
But
doubled
that's
his.
not crazy. I mean, Mark Richt recruited okay. He didn't recruit at this level.
No one recruits at this level, but Mark Richt had a top 10 class every single year.
Yeah, but there's a difference from having 9, 10 versus 1 or 2 every year.
We could go back and look at it, but that entire roster was loaded like every year. And also, if you want to look at like just draft picks, just developing talent, because like first round picks, it's hard to be a first round pick. Just developing talent and putting people in the league. Mark Richt was like I think he had 40 players. The talent was always there. So anyway, so what I wanted to see was how he compared to Mark Richt, obviously the person who was there before him, because that used to be a narrative as well. That was he's just Mark Richt 2.0 compared with Saban. And then also like we're in the middle of what a lot of people think could be a dynasty. So where does it compare with some of the coaches in those dynasties? So I immediately looked up Urban Meyer. I looked up guys like Steve Spurrier at Florida in the 90s. Looked at because I knew it was a rival. Urban Meyer, Ohio State, and Florida, I should say. Mac Brown. You know that Mac Brown? You know how many he only had? You know how many draft picks he had in his first 7 years at Texas?
Could have been, man. I think the championship team, the Vince Young team, was like the first one that had like a bunch of first rounders.
They never. He had 20.
Wow.
And it was like he never had more than 4 or 5 in a year, including that year, which is weird. But 9 of them were first rounders, so that was also something.
What about
anyway,
did you do Les Miles at LSU?
No, because I didn't really. He never impressed me much. Should I have?
Yeah, I mean, he had a bunch of first rounders.
No, I should have gone back. I can go back and look at it. I was trying to look at like some of like the names, because the other thing that like kind of blew me away was, all right, somebody brought the stat and I confirmed it to be true. Nick Saban has 46 draft picks at Alabama, first round draft picks. That's the most at one school that anyone's ever had in NCAA history. Second is Joe Paterno, and he has 33. So I was like, 33 is, I mean, that's just double basically what 15 is. Like he's got double what Kirby had, but he did it. It took him 46 years. Like Joe Pa was at Penn State forever. So like, what does that look like? And I don't know if he keeps this pace, but like where he ranks in some of the all-time greats. Look at what Kirby did, like versus what Bear Bryant did. Bear Bryant had 14 first-round picks in 25 total years at Alabama.
But that was different. They were drafting fullbacks in the first round. Like,
well, I mean, it's still a thing that the whole point is we look at all of those coaches and the entire attitude we have against them is like, this is the Mount Rushmore of college football. These are the greatest coaches of all time. They put all these guys in the league, all of those things. And whether you want to look at it differently or not, because the way the draft was fine. But in this instance, Kirby Smart is in that same breath.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And, if the Philadelphia Bulldogs keep doing what they're doing and like building a pipeline from Athens, Georgia up to Philly, like that's just absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. And then they trade for DeAndre Swift. Like, what are they doing? Like, I really thought that Stetson Bennett was in play to back up Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, that I was saying I wish that I would have given anything for them to draft JT Daniels with like their last pick.
He's at Rice, dude.
I know he's so cool. No, but going back to the Kirby thing, just showing some of the numbers of where it ranks. Here's the total draft picks in the first 7 seasons of college football. We'll start there. Does that sound good? Because here we'll go with this. Yeah, we'll go with that. Hold on. I downloaded all 33 Canva like templates that I had in this one folder on accident. Like I'm a mess with Canva, dude. I love it, but I'm an absolute mess with the entire thing. All right, so 50. God dang it, that's a video. Total draft picks in his first 7 seasons: 55 for Kirby Smart. Notable other notable coaches: Pete Carroll, 42; Nick Saban, 41; Mark Richt, 50. I'm sorry, 40. Dabo Swinney, 38; Steve Spurrier, 35; Urban Meyer at Florida, 29. Granted, that was only 6 years, and Mac Brown with 20. Now
And you
Urban
didn't
Meyer,
do I'm telling you, Les Miles is in that mix.
I wish I would have said that earlier. I didn't even think about that, to be honest. Um, Now, there was one argument that was made from a lot of Bama fans, especially, that was like, well, this only happened because of Mark Richt, and Mark Richt was, yeah, look it up now. For real. Like, Mark Richt is the reason why Kirby had early success. Just take, like somebody says specifically, Nick Chubb was a Richt guy. I don't know why that example came up because he was a second round pick, but then start the year after that he was drafted. Start in 2019. In the last 4 years, Kirby's had 41 players drafted. That's the same amount that Saban had in his first 7 years. It's just very impressive, is all I'm saying. Now, when you look at the 15 first round draft picks, this was what really caught my attention because the 15 first round draft picks. Now, where does that rank? Where does the 15 first round draft picks rank in all of college football? Well, I'll tell you this, Gordy. It's more than 81 FBS programs have had in their entire program history going into this year's draft. It is it is more than the rest of the entire SEC East combined over the last 7 years. It is more than Tennessee has had since the Clinton administration, dating back to 2000, and also more than I said, like the Bear Bryant thing when he was the head coach of Bama. So last and certainly not least, your 15 first round picks at one school, and where that compares to with other coaches. It's more than Mark Richt. It's more than Steve Spurrier, who had at Florida. He had 13 over 12 years. Bear Bryant had 14 over 25 years. Mac Brown at Texas, 15 over 15 years. Also, several years in a row where they just put no one out. Bobby Bowden, 31. So he's halfway to catching Bobby Bowden, and that took Bobby 34 years. Joe Paterno, 33 over 46 years. And then last but not least, and your number one, obviously Nick Saban, 46 picks at Bama. It took 16 years.
Les Miles had 13 first rounders at LSU.
In 7 years?
No, and it from 05 to 2014. But you were just saying Mac Brown in his tenure. So
no, so I probably should have honestly could have recruited he would have ranked up there with Mark Richt. So I didn't even think about that. I should have called you for help. What was your
that 07 year was Jamarcus Russell, Ron Landry, Dwayne Bowe, and Craig Buster Davis all went in the first round. So
I forgot about Dwayne Bowe. He was good.
It was really good for the Chiefs when they didn't even have a quarterback. Imagine him playing with Mahomes.
Imagine anybody playing with Mahomes, though. That'd be awesome. Somebody said today that Caleb Williams was like a second coming of Mahomes. Like,
see, I hate that shit. It's so ridiculous. An NFL quarterback coach said this. Right. I'm like, dude, just fucking say who said that. So it's so ridiculous. That's the funny thing, and I love the guys over at Lindy's. I think they do an awesome job. I still, to this day, hand to God, buy the Lindy's.
Oh yeah,
all preview magazine every summer. But they always will have like an anonymous quote, and it's like an SEC offensive coordinator said this about Bama's Kevin Steele, and I think the game has passed him by. And I'm like, who said this?
Yeah,
it's like you want to be like out the person,
right? No, honestly that's like the draft is over. It's like I was thinking this the other day. I was like, what do we have to look forward to besides death? And it's magazine season.
Oh yeah, media days will be here before we know it. Talking season. It's fun to I was kind of just for a fun activity looking through the rosters the other night, guessing who schools are going to bring to media days.
Yeah,
and Bama won't be their quarterback, but I'm sure maybe some defensive players.
Yeah, you never know. I'm sure they'll be fine either way. I hope he brings all three quarterbacks, to be honest.
David brings Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner all to media.
Bring back Bryce just for he was so charismatic. Anyway, no, that's that's pretty much the show this week. We'll have another one most likely on Thursday, I think. I actually have a comedy show on Thursday, but yeah, I mean, like, unless I'm missing stuff, what I know you talk about the
Uh,
SEC today, so I'm sure
LSU,
something.
yeah, LSU got rid of Brian Polian, their
Okay.
terrible special teams coordinator. They had already demoted him, but
Hmm.
then he just left. He's going to go be the athletic director at John Carroll University.
Why does that name sound familiar?
It's like one of those uppity schools up north. It's his alma mater, so he's going to
So
go.
what? Like, is that an odd move in May?
Yeah, but
Okay.
but they, but they had demoted him. Like they already said, you're not going to be special teams coordinator. I think he was just handling recruiting.
Yeah.
And they were like, get out of here. So that was kind of a headline. Did you see the Bleacher Report did a very early projection to the first round next year? Did you see that?
Mhm.
The
I
SEC
don't think I saw
guys?
I saw some of the players, but what'd you got?
Dallas Turner, number
Mhm.
4 overall next year from Alabama. Kool-Aid McKinstry, he's got going 7th overall. I think that's a little high, but I like Kool-Aid.
Seen that everywhere,
Brock,
yeah.
Brock Bowers 8th. I think that's low. I think Brock Bowers is going top 5 next year. Like if Kyle Pitts can go top 5, Brock Bowers is top 5.
Yeah. I mean, no tight end never been drafted that high before, and Bowers is just such a freak. So yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like I've
He's
seen
Travis
anywhere
Kelce.
between yeah, I mean, I've seen anywhere between 4 and uh I don't know, like 10. I guess you haven't seen a lot that's where he would drop out of the top 10. That would be crazy. But it's a year away. Those mock drafts, we were joking about this last week. I think it's like they're never accurate, and they don't have to be. It's like not the point of doing them. But like Todd McShay, I think like his top 10 or top like 15 or something like that from a year ago to now, we got like 7 out of 10 right. He was like spot on.
Yeah, I like him just to kind of get an idea. Like if you go look at a mock draft this time a year ago, it had Bryce Young and Will Anderson top 5, and that just
Yeah.
played out. So I mean, there's certain guys that get on your radar. Now I think there was one 2 years ago, I think it was, had Spencer Rattler going as a first round pick, and that
Yeah.
didn't happen. I mean, he's
Well,
still playing, but
yeah, it's so funny too. And I think that social media has driven most of this to be the case. But like I was telling somebody the other day, like the Spencer Rattler thing, when he got to South Carolina, the stuff you heard from any outside fan base was like, he sucks. He like, look how bad he was. He got benched for a freshman. And it's like, okay, just give that. That's a fucking terrible take. Like, Caleb Williams was a 5-star, was like freshman that came in, has this incredible season, incredible comeback. And then, oh, lo and behold, a year later, he wins the Heisman Trophy. And now they're talking about him in the same breath as like potentially being Patrick Mahomes when he gets drafted number 1 overall next year. Spencer Rattler, I don't know if he's a first round guy, but that was
did you see that the comment? Spencer Rattler is Rex Grossman.
Rex Grossman was good.
Hey, one more thing I wanted to throw in draft related. I know you always like to piss off Tennessee fans.
Oh yeah,
So, what did you think of? I mean, Hendon fell, and I think he's in a good spot with the Detroit Lions, but Hendon Hooker falls,
uh-huh.
and then both receivers fall. Jalen Hyatt goes 73rd overall. Cedric Tillman goes 74th overall. I read an article over the weekend that said, I'm just throwing it out there. Is Tennessee a system? Is Josh
Yeah,
Heupel like in other words, like are these guys all just
gimmicky
successful?
system. Of course it is. Of course it is. Listen. I saw this outrage, and it was like, but here's the thing: when you're doing it, it works, and it implores or not implores it implements like other parts of like I don't want to say real offenses, but I mean like more traditional based offenses. But when you line a receiver up outside of the hashes where he's like a foot from out of bounds, and you do that to like to spread out as many people as possible, it's smart. It's really smart. You stack your receivers. You try to find your guy on a safety and mismatches. It's a really good system, but it's a system. It 1,000% is. And Tennessee fans that are arguing, like, you can't argue with Tennessee fans in general because they're just going to fucking get mad about everything. Like that's coming from me. But like Tennessee fans, yeah, it is. It is a system. But like, you know what? I think if Tennessee fans took a breath and like stopped trying to have an argument about every goddamn thing that is thrown in front of them, and we're not even supposed to say GD on here. It's like the one word we can't say. but every goddamn thing that comes in front of these people, stop arguing about it, and just take it. Isn't everything so much better now with this system? Who cares if it's a system? You're winning games.
Like, put Heupel, Hooker, Hyatt, and Tillman at Texas Tech last year, and they do the same exact thing. Are those guys getting drafted, or where they did? You know what I mean? Like, does our opinion change on all of those guys?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I was honestly, I don't know. I mean, because like Jalen Hyatt's also like a 4-3 guy, so that for me, I was surprised he could have been a round one guy. That wouldn't surprise me. With the year he had. That's a really good question about Texas Tech. The one thing that I did think
that was the gripe on those quarterbacks for years, pre-Mahomes,
right?
DJ Simons, Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, like all those guys, the gripe was always good quarterback, but they're just running a system,
right? And I don't think it's not as bad as that, where they're throwing the ball 80 times a game and stuff like that. They are throwing it deeper, and it'll be interesting to see what Joe Milton does in that offense, because again, you're throwing the ball deep, but you're having to throw it with accuracy. And Hendon Hooker was a very accurate quarterback, and that doesn't just grow on trees. Like throwing the ball deep, that's not like a thing that just everyone is able to do. Like every quarterback's able to do.
If I set the over under right now on 2.5 rounds, over under, where does Joe Milton get drafted next year? Round 1 or 2, or 3 and later?
I would have him round 1 or 2.
Really, Joe Milton?
I would. I think I wouldn't draft him there, but like, okay, here's what I'm saying. Because if
they're gonna love his arm strength, like
his arm, that's as soon as they see it. That's what Anthony Richardson was. You're gonna see this whole Anthony Richardson hit the ceiling. That whole fucking thing. It's like, yeah, every year. It's like the Men in Black mind eraser thing. It happens to NFL GMs, and they're like, okay, what is a good thing about quarterbacks? I don't know. I'm doing like the Cosby thing, but it's like pudding. What's the good thing about quarterbacks? Their arms got to be good, right, guys? Yeah, that's all we need. It's ridiculous.
Dan Orlovsky, I really hope he got his cut from Anthony Richardson's agent, because he sold the crap out of him on like, hey man, let me skip ahead to play 36 in the game against Georgia. I'm like, what about 35, dumbass? Right. Completions. What about the whole first quarter where they didn't score a point? What about the whole fourth quarter where they didn't score a point? Show me those plays, dude.
I know exactly. I was watching this exactly at the same time you were, because I know exactly what you're talking about. He's like, it's a 2-point or 2-score game. And look at this throw. Look at this throw. And it's dude, ESPN, it's on all the time. It is unwatchable during some stuff, because it's like the worst takes that come up. It's so bad.
Like, you know who I could do that with? Mike Wright at Vanderbilt last year. Now, let me show you. Late against Kentucky, you need a throw? Look at Mike Wright right on the dime.
Mike Wright against Hawaii.
It's the one good throw he made the whole game. And it's like,
also, shout out to Vandy, because to this day, the best bet that I had the entire year, I had like a $50 bet to start out the year that game. This game started at fucking midnight, and it was over 13.5 points in the first quarter, and they were down like 7-0, and they fumbled. There was like one play left in the first quarter, and there was like a second left, and they ran the football, and I was like, oh, the only way that's going to happen is if they fumble and it's ran back for a touchdown. And they fumbled, and it was ran back for a touchdown. I was like, yes, it was awesome. That's what Vandy did for.
That was another bombshell story we didn't get to that Ross Dellinger had today. That so they announced the official dates for the playoffs for 2024 and 2025, and they're going to go head to head with the first round is going to go. They're going to play like the first game of round 1 on a Friday, and then the other 3 games on that Saturday. And this is like mid-December. And they're going to go head-to-head with NFL games on that Saturday. So you're going to have regular season NFL with 3 of the first-round playoff games. Well, Ross Dellinger said today, NFL conflicts are why officials are exploring moving up the season. Week 0 will turn into week 1, and then they will hold conference title games around the week of Thanksgiving.
That sucks. Who fucking cares that much about the NFL? Just put all your fucking games on Sunday in December. Like you do it for every other fucking weekend of the year. Every other weekend on Sunday.
They open the door because the conference championships are always first weekend of December, and the NFL's like, okay, cool. If we move into Saturdays now, and college football was like, yeah, cool. We're just playing shitty bowl games. The Poinsettia Bowl, sure. So now they're like, wait, we want to do playoffs. NFL's like, we're not going back to just Sundays, bro. We're playing every day of the week.
I fucking
So
hate that so
yeah,
much.
so because of that, college football is like, well, our only choice is to pivot, move the season up, so we can play our playoff games before.
It's just the reason why it makes me so mad. Like I'm like genuinely like furious right now because the reason why it makes me so mad is because I hate Roger Goodell more than anything. But it also like it is the most ridiculous. It's such a money making like it's bigger than anything else I feel like in the world. It does whatever it wants to fucking do. But I don't understand that in December why that all of a sudden becomes a thing. Just you've done it in every other part of the year. Just play on Sundays, dude. Play on fucking Sundays. That's your whole thing. NFL what ticket? What is it called? NFL what ticket?
Sunday.
NFL Sunday ticket. Cool. So you do it for like just everything about the NFL. It makes me so mad about how some of the things are run. Like the people with the gambling shit. Granted, this time it was like their fault. Like it's like, hey, don't gamble in the like on the premises, and they did. But like, it's like you have it's your number one. It is your number one like ad generating revenue is just partnering with Caesar Sportsbook and all these different gambling apps, and it's just like, God, they just print money, but it's never fucking enough. It seems like for the NFL, it just.
One other wrinkle for this, the semifinals of the 2024 and 2025 college football playoffs. So these are the semis determining who's going to go play for the championship. Will be played on Thursday and Friday of NFL wildcard weekend. Because again, they want to get out of the way of the NFL and they don't want to go head to head with them then.
But isn't that like December 30th? So that's kind of like a.
Yeah. Well, I know the Sugar Bowl just announced today, the next 3 years, they will play their games on New Year's Day. So, and one of those is combined with the is a playoff game. So,
Are we doing the home game? Are we doing the home and home? Is that what it? Not home and home, but like
the first round will be home games.
So this is like all like I honestly like. I mean, this is still a year away. But like
it's going to come here quick. I mean, and this will coincide with Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, USC and UCLA in the Big Ten. Everything we've known and liked about college football is about to go out the window.
Yeah, it's fair. That sucks, but. I'll say about that first round of playoff games.
One more story you missed today. Did you see the Alabama baseball story?
Yo, so what is that about?
A major bombshell from ESPN dropped Monday night as the state of Ohio is no longer accepting legal bets on Alabama baseball, citing suspicious activity surrounding the Crimson Tide's Friday night game against LSU. Did you get like some intel on Alabama baseball or something?
Dude, I don't give a fuck about Alabama baseball. Like all the other sports, I'm cool with. But like, okay, so they were playing LSU this weekend. Is this the game where it was like they scored like 7 runs in the 9th or something like that?
There were a ton. Like LSU, both of them scored a ton of runs. LSU swept them, but Bama scored a ton of runs.
Okay, so they scored like there was something that happened like because I remember Hunter Johnson tweeting, he's like, well, this is certainly a baseball game. And it was like something happened where they had 4 hit batters. Hold on, Moscona tweeted about it too. Moscona. Why do I say his name wrong?
Scone, like a scone.
Oh, that's right, because I hate scones. Okay. So he has 51,000 followers. Holy shit.
So here was the deal. There was a couple of bets made in Cincinnati, Ohio. One was on a parlay, which involved the LSU Alabama baseball game. And there was another straight up money line bet. I was told it was a large bet that involved the game. They reported the suspicious activity took place at the MGM Sportsbook at the Cincinnati Reds ballpark.
I don't understand the suspicious activity part, but here's what he tweeted. LSU allowed 11 runs on 10 hits, walked 7, hit 3, committed 4 errors, and they won 13-11. And I think it was a game where Alabama scored like 5 runs or something like that in the 9th inning. So they still lost.
So is it maybe something like one of the players for Alabama has a brother or something that lives in Ohio and was like, bro, we're going to lose this game. Go bet. You know what I mean? Like, was there some kind of intel?
I don't know. And it's weird too because they haven't outed any of the stuff about like what could have happened. A fucking Bama baseball what do you call it? Like scandal would really be a tough, be tough for the program at this point. It's just
Well,
all the athlete, or you know what I'm saying.
yeah, basketball's already got the murderers, and now
Jesus.
baseball's got the gambling.
All right, that's the show for today. Everyone, make sure you go follow Chris Gordy. Gordy, tell everyone they can find you. I think they probably know by now, but I appreciate you coming on, man, for real, and filling in for Tyler. Tyler will be back next week, and we'll see everyone then.
Yeah, Locked On SEC is my podcast. I'm going to have Tykees Crawford on this week, the Arkansas offensive lineman. So we'll get some intel into Dan Enos and KJ Jefferson and what Arkansas is going to look like.
Love it, man. Love it. Well, the AD of athletics got arrested too, man. I wasn't going to get into that. That's pretty tough. Okay, all right. You guys have a great week. My birthday's Friday. We'll see you then.